Hey there, I'm Amanda with Hook'em Homestead, and today I am talking about how I prep our history for the term that is coming up. So, first off, if you are following along, we are doing America First and Heart and Soul for our United States history. And then for our neighboring country, we're doing our island story. So, technically not our neighbor. I get that. But the premise being that your history is closely linked to, and Edie has explained many a times why they think, obviously, British history applies for that. So, as you saw, I have these sheets of paper sticking out of them. That is what I am prepping for this term. So, what I do is, after I lay out my forecasting, which is in last week's video, I go ahead and I start doing the readings. So I set aside for myself, history is about 2 weeks. Sometimes I come up a little less than 2 weeks. Sometimes I'm right on with the 2 weeks. And because I have 3 days of reading, and so 3 days of reading for 10 weeks is 30 readings. So I need to get through 30 readings in 2 weeks. And my weeks are 14 days because I'm not just doing the 5 school days, but I'm reading every single day. So that is about 2 readings a day that I have to get through. Now, like Heart and Soul, these chapters are so much shorter and are really easy. I fly through these. The Our Island story and the America First. America First I read through very quickly, actually. But I only get through 1 or 2 a day, generally, because I just do. Okay, so how I do this is I am creating these guides. And so the things I'm looking for is a seed idea for my reading, scaffolding to catch us from the last reading we did to this reading to help jog our memory. Who did we just talk about? What is it that we just read? Then I have a recap, which is where I do my narration from the portion that we just read. And then I put down maps, people, like I write names, maps that we might need to look at, and dates that we might add to like a timeline or that my daughter might bring up so that I have those dates written out. So she goes, I want to add this to a timeline. And she goes, it was this time. And we can look. Yep, that was the time. I have it right here, ready to go. And then I also usually do a discussion question or 2 on here to go with it. Also, a new thing I'm doing because we have my daughter reading separate from me in some things, like our island story. She's reading this mostly by herself. I am now putting together words that might be difficult to pronounce. So like names, and I'll just go through them with her at the beginning of it because she likes knowing how it is pronounced. But sometimes it's just nice to know. Anyways, so in our island story, there is just so much history, and it is cool to be able to, like we're talking about, so Julius Caesar. So I have a picture of Caesar. Then I have on here that he's a Roman emperor. And so then we have like what is the Roman Empire. So I have a map that shows us that empire. And then in saying emblem, Roman army. So I've got kind of some of their, like, what did a soldier look like? What was their fortresses like? Because their fortresses are a little different than an American fortress, right? Ours are like sticks, wood. There's our brick, and so, and their boats. And so we have a whole bunch of different pictures that I have gotten off the internet of things that I thought, oh, this would be a cool thing to be able to see, or oh, this would be a cool thing. Anyways, so I do take the time to look up, like, if I think there's something that would be a cool picture as well. I will put it in here, and we can use that during our discussion time maybe. It's just so that we have the options. And so when she is narrating back to me, I might say, oh, and what do you think that looks like, or something during our discussion time. You know, you mentioned this in your narration. What do you think that looked like? And she might have her picture. I said, well, look, here's what that actually looks like, or whatever. Anyways, so that is something I also do. If there's certain people, I might put pictures just so they have a picture of who that person is in their mind. Especially if it is somebody who they like detailed what they looked like. Like in America First, I was just reading one about Webster, Henry Webster. And like they talk about how frail he was and whatnot, but as he grew up to be this very strong man, and like his prominent brow, and like they described him very in detail. And so I made sure to include like a picture of him. So anyways, so then, like I said, maps is another big one. So if I don't, I can either A, look up a map, or B, we will, I might have a map in a book. But for like heart and soul, I wanted a map of, you know, the Mason-Dixon line, you know, and different things, you know, when we're going to be talking about the Underground Railroad, I'm going to want a map of that so that we can see like where that went, how that looked, how are these things like related to where things are in our country. And so that is what I like to peruse through with history. And then during this time, I will also pick out our biographies for the term, as I have not done that yet. And because I'll have read who we're reading about, and then I can think, okay, so this is like the time period we're in. So like the first while was like some of the westward expansion. So we did more like Davy Crockett, right? Buffalo Bill. Then as we get into the slavery stuff, we'll probably do like Dolaire's Abraham Lincoln, and then some other signature biography of the sort. So I just like having in the back of my mind what we're reading about and trying to fit a biography in there. If I don't have a biography that works in that like smaller section within our broad time period, then I'll just pick a different one. But there's plenty of biographies, to be honest. And so I have not had that problem. And so that is what I will do. And then I will forecast out that biography as well. So that is how I prep for the first 2 weeks as far as history goes. If you have any questions where I find things, obviously I just Google a lot of it to get pictures. So it's not like they are in the public domain that I can share this stuff. But they are what we write down and stuff. So that is how I keep this all organized and how I get ahead of my students now on their reading, and to have that in the background. Now, also during this time, I'm starting to think about next year already. Yes, I know that seems crazy, but I'm starting to think, what books are we going to need for next year for history? Because do I need to buy biographies for that time period coming up? Do I need to buy a spine text? Which the answer is no to that, because I already purchased that, getting ahead of that game, because we are going to be using Stories of America Volume 2. And I knew that Simply Charlotte Mason was going to be discontinuing it. So I had purchased that ahead of time before the prices went on that book. So very thankful I did. Anyways, so I had already bought that spine because America First only goes up to, hold on here. And this was the problem with this. The Exploits of Sergeant York. Okay. And so we will not take this obviously through the 2000s. So because of that, and we're going 1900s to current, I needed a different spine. So that is where we are doing that. So I know I have my spine text for America. I did just figure out for our island story, this term we are actually doing the heroic age of our island story, but we will be jumping it forward to our time period that we're in next year. So this will be jumping all the way towards the end of the book. However, this, I believe, goes through World War One. Let me see here. It said World War, but which World War? Peace was signed. Okay, yeah, World War One. And so because this does not go all the way up through what we want, I have to get a British spine. So I am going to be looking through my resources to try and figure out what spine that is recommended. I think I figured it out, but I want to double check a few places and make sure that that is the best spine that I will be purchasing. And then I need to look at the biographies. And I'll start hunting for those then on like eBay or Bookfinder or any of those places to try and get a good deal on it. Okay. Well, now that the dog's barking, I guess I'm going to go. Have a good day. Talk to you later.